came up with this concept of neoliberal Leninism, which is kind of weird. Because you figure that, neoliberalism is all about free markets, and you also figure that Leninism is all about communism and unfree markets, right? But oddly enough, the period of time that we're living in right now, it can be understood as a neoliberal Leninism that's going on, where you have an elite that is trying to guide the masses, and trying to crush any opposition, any dissent. And once you look at it through this lens of realizing that it's kind of like communism, but with free markets, or apparent free markets, as I'll explain in a bit, then you start to understand what's really going on. You start to understand that what we are living through is, in a sense, a socialist revolution. Let me explain very simply. What is Leninism? Leninism is an ideology founded by Vladimir Lenin that basically posits that the Communist Party is the elite vanguard that is leading the proletariat to the socialist revolution, to communism, to the ideal of communism. That's the whole point of Leninism. See, because before Lenin, the idea was that socialism would sort of like spontaneously emerge from the masses, from the working classes. And spontaneously, as if by some sort of magic, the proletariat would rise up, impose a socialist dictatorship of the proletariat, and eventually transcend into communism. And it would happen all spontaneously, and nothing else had to happen. It was just the workers. That was the basic idea of Marxism. Lenin came up with the notion that there had to be a party, an elite that would guide the masses. That the masses on their own could not achieve the manic nirvana that was communism. No. They needed a party, the Communist Party or the Bolshevik Party, to lead them to that communist utopia. Without this elite, the proles could never achieve the glory of true communism. And that's Leninism in a nutshell, okay? I'm skipping over a whole bunch of issues that are not relevant to this video, and frankly, I'm going to be doing a 3-hour video, 2-3-hour video on this issue, webinar, on Patreon about this issue of neoliberal Leninism, okay? What I want to do here is just sort of like sketch it out. If you understand what Leninism is, that it's an elite, now look at what neoliberalism is. What is neoliberalism? It's not free markets, okay? I mean, get that out of your head. They claim to be free marketeers, but they're not. What they are, what neoliberalism truly is monopolistic oligarchies that work hand in glove with the state. It is state corporatism. Look at it. Yeah, what does neoliberalism promulgate? It promulgates a free movement of capital, yeah, and free markets, which sound all very good and fine. But as neoliberalism is practiced today, what it really means is that the state works with corporations, and these corporations assume dominant positions in their respective industries. Sometimes they are monopolies, sometimes they are oligopolies of just, 2 or 3 players. But what's key is that these 2 or 3 or 1 player, as the case may be, work with the state. The state helps that monopoly gain control over that particular segment of the economy. Look at Amazon. Amazon.com. Amazon is becoming the online Walmart. Amazon is becoming the one store that you can buy it all, right? And the state is helping it. Oh yeah. Amazon has a whole bunch of contracts with different agencies in the government, data management and whatnot. You think that the government is not helping out Amazon? Of course they are. And Amazon, of course, through Jeff Bezos, they have the Washington Post, and they have a whole army of lobbyists to make sure that Amazon is never broken up. Amazon is the monopoly of online shopping, and the state is actively helping Amazon. And this happens in a whole host of other industries, okay? I'm not just picking on Amazon just for, just because. No. The same kind of model is happening across the economy. And this is key because, you see, neoliberalism claims to be about free markets, but it has no problem with a dominant player crushing a newcomer. And a lot of times the new player is not crushed by the monopolist. Oh, no. It's crushed by the state. The state helps the monopolist. Yeah, it happens all the time. And what's interesting is that, see, anybody who objects to this, well, Anybody who objects to this is claimed to be wrong, that they are anti-free market. The free market dictates, and so we have the monopolist, which is kind of like Leninism, because you see, Leninism, to circle back to it, is all about an ideology, communism, in the case of traditional communist Leninism, right? The idea is that the ideology of communism is the only way to look at reality. But what's interesting is that, see, in Leninism, the ideology that they have, that they promulgate, socialism, communism, Marxism, basically, well, it's not an accurate representation of reality. Yeah, obviously. I mean, anybody who's read Marx knows that Marx did not represent reality at the time in the 19th century, and certainly not into the 20th century. But Leninists believe that Marxism is an accurate representation, and they created a whole ideology around Marxism. All of Lenin's writings and Stalin's writings and all the rest of these people, they wrote volumes and volumes of theory to explain reality. And the thing is, all this theory, it did not explain reality. It was a crazy ideology. It was a religion. Basically, that's what it was. It was a religion that did not conform to reality, but what was crucial about it was that, see, those who believed in this ideology were part of the Leninist elite. And of course, anybody who disagreed with or dissented from the Leninist orthodoxy was an enemy to be crushed. And because this ideology was true in the eyes of the Leninists, of course, because it was true, and because it would lead to this nirvana of communism, inevitably, well, then it was all good and fine to crush any dissent, to cheat, to lie, to steal, to murder in the name of this ideology. Of course, because to them, this ideology was the truth. The truth. And so anything was fair game in order to achieve power. That was the point of Leninism. And people don't seem to understand it, but the Leninists would do all kinds of things in order to capture power and hold on to power, including murder, including creating concentration camps. You read the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, that's the whole point of it. And he shows it. He shows how it happened, how the legal structure in the Soviet Union was created so as to send all dissidents, anybody who didn't believe in the Leninist ideology, to these concentration camps, to spend 10 years, 20 years, 30 years as basically slave labor. And it was considered good and fair and true because these people had dissented. That was the point. Any dissent had to be crushed because they were the masters of the truth. And what's going on today? Do we have something similar? Of course we do. We have these wokesters who claim that, the patriarchy runs all. The patriarchy is why women are where they are. Women are in a pretty good position in the Western democracy, but insofar as the woke ideology is concerned, no, it's a rape culture, it's evil, it's blah, 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 right? And forget about if you're a racial minority. A racial minority, the bigotry, the white privilege, quote unquote. Oh, it's rampant and it has to be crushed by any means necessary. You see the 2020 election? 2020 election is stolen. That's clear as glass. It's obvious that it's being stolen right before our eyes. But what do they say, these wokesters, these neoliberal Leninists? They say it's okay. I mean, think about it. If Joe Biden had actually won the election and you and I were Democrats, right? Would we have a problem with vote recounts? Of course not. I mean, if we think that he won fair and square, we would say, sure, go ahead, count all you want. We're going to win every time because we did win. But the fact that they object to recounts, they object to audits, they object to looking at the counting machines, to seeing if there was some tricky little algorithm that was changing the votes. Oh, they don't want that. Why? Because they know that they cheated. But the thing is, see, they don't object to this cheating because, just like a Leninist, in order to achieve this woke state of affairs, in order to fight racism and bigotry and fight the patriarchy, lying and stealing and cheating are acceptable. The woke culture today, just like the Leninists in Bolshevik Russia, the woke culture today is fine with murder, in the name of their ideology, because they have committed murder so far, and they're going to commit a lot more murders, okay? You mark my words. It's inevitable, because they think that they own the truth. They think that they're right. And what's interesting is that the more divorced from reality their ideology actually is, the more they hold on to it. See? Because when you are holding on to ideas about reality that are more or less accurate, you realize that you're constantly having to change them. Because reality is never quite as it seems. And sometimes it shifts around on you. And you have to sort of like constantly be trying to grab it. But if you have an ideology, a static ideology, that posits that, say, the patriarchy, white privilege, and some other bugaboo is the reason for the unhappiness of our society, if you have all that ideology and you hold on to it, well, you never have to confront reality. You can just hold on to the ideology. You can hold on to these lies. And as you hold on tighter to these lies, the more you are willing to do horrifying things in the name of these lies. You don't have to take my word for it. Look at history. Look at what happened in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Look at what happened in the Russian Civil War. Look at what happened in the killing fields in Cambodia under Pol Pot. See? All of this was these horrors of the 20th century were the expression of this belief in a misbegotten ideology. No different from the wokesters today, the neoliberal Leninists. Yeah, you look at the people today in white-collar businesses and whatnot, and they all have this woke ideology, and they keep on pushing it. Well, it's the way that they identify one another. It's the way that they conform to this dominant ideology. And they push neoliberal economic policies that are really like corporatist, statist, actually fascist, if you get right down to it. Because that's what's actually going on. This partnership between corporations and the state, that's actually fascism. Go ahead and study fascist Italy or fascist Germany in the 1920s and the 1930s. Mussolini and Hitler, you know one of the first things that they did once they assumed power? Yeah, they claimed that they were going to overthrow the entrenched oligarchs and the entrenched capitalist class, right? They claimed that they were going to do that, right? But once they actually achieved power, both in Italy and in Germany, those dictators, they made friends with the big corporations in their respective countries. They made friends with them, and they brought the state and these corporations together to work together. That was the essence of fascism. And that's actual fascism, okay? But what's going on today, they don't call it fascism. They call it neoliberalism. But it's the exact same thing. The exploitation of the working man to favor corporations and the state. It's the exact same thing. And where you have this woke elite leading people. Leading people to this eventual nirvana where there won't be any more racism and there won't be any more white privilege. And who's benefiting from it? The state and the corporations. The state and the corporations are gaining more and more power over you. No different from the state back in the days of Lenin. It's the exact same thing. And the key issue, of course, is that you have this elite that believes in a foolish ideology that does not conform to reality. But this ideology is the mechanism by which they recognize one another and the ideology that they hold on to so that they can clobber dissenters, destroy dissenters. And that's what they're doing. Yeah, they claim to be progressives, right? They claim that they are progressive. They are so progressive, but they're communists. It's the same thing. See? It's just a different name. Communism has gone through multiple names over the years, and it's ultimately the same thing every time. It's an ideology based on resentment. Resentment and hatred. And they harness the resentment and hatred of the masses in order to achieve political power. And once they achieve it, they turn that political power against the masses, and they enslave the masses, inevitably. It happens every time. In the past, and what makes it difficult to recognize this time around, in the past, they used the state. The state was monolithic. The state owned everything. It owned the means of production. It was the whole enchilada, if you will. But today, it's this weird partnership between the state and monopolistic enterprises. That's what's going on. That's what makes it so hard to recognize. Once you understand that there is this difference here, the neoliberal difference, if you will, of corporations, monopolistic, oligopolistic corporations, and the state working in tandem and working as one to exploit the people, to put the people down, to enslave the people, while this woke elite has true political control by their political officials, unelected of course, by their propagandists, CNN, MSNBC, and all the rest of it, by way of their corporate masters, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Tim Pool, all these people. Then you start to see the parallels. Then you start to see what's happening today. The neoliberal Leninists have to be resisted. They have to be resisted with every fiber of our being. Because the neoliberal Leninists, they're not limited by national border. They're globalists. And they seek global hegemony. And it's a class of people. It's a whole class of people hell-bent on controlling you. You who are a dissenter. You who don't buy their ideology. You who might be just a working stiff and never meant anybody any harm, but by your mere freedom, you are a threat to them. They don't want you free. That's why we have lockdowns. They don't want you to have true choice. That's why they have monopolies. They don't want you to have agency. And they view you as interchangeable, replaceable. And that's why they bring in these populations, these immigrant populations that, have nothing to do with your culture. But they bring them in because they view you as replaceable. They view you as just another cog in a machine that can be replaced if it's defective or if it gets out of line or if it gets uppity. That's the point of these neoliberal Leninists. Understand, they are communists, they are Bolsheviks, they're the Khmer Rouge, they are the cultural revolutionists, the Red Guard. They are the same thing over and over, just in a different garb. And understand that they mean to destroy you, and destroy me, and destroy anyone who objects.